if something inside you makes you want to be a writer, just telling yourself you don't care about it anymore isn't going to make it go away. The urge will still be there. It's genetic. It's part of who you are.
What if an artist feels shame for not loving the process of creating and they find the process extremely painful?
What if the artist feels shame for not enjoying the process or finding the process painful? Is that what you asked?
Right.
Huh. Well, I would say if the artist feels shame about anything, the first step would be stop feeling shame. Accept your process for what it is. Again, we get back to this idea of I should be doing better than I am. I'm doing exactly as well as I can. At this moment, I'm doing the best I can. Whether it's painting, drawing, educating myself, whatever it is, I may be doing it. I may not be doing it as well as I'd like to, but I'm certainly doing it as best I can. Otherwise, I would be doing it better. So the first thing I need to do is to accept my current level of performance. And then, strategically, ask myself, if there are pain points here, what can I do to minimize the pain points? Is there a different way for me to think about my art that will play more to my strengths and play away from my weaknesses? I'm thinking about myself in this moment. Tedious execution does not interest me. I'm not going to spend an hour doing cross-hatching with pen and ink because that act of creation doesn't turn me on. I have other things that I like to do that I enjoy more. I like drawing free-form human figures, for example. So now I can say to myself, I could get better at cross-hatching, which would be useful. That'll build my practice. And I can continue doing the type of art that I love just because I love it. But whatever path I choose in this moment, whichever action I choose in this moment, I'm not going to assign a value judgment to it. The act of feeling shame is the act of assigning a value judgment to an action. The specific action, that was a bad action, and I should feel ashamed of myself for taking that action. That whole line of thought is foreign to me. I don't like it, I don't allow it, I don't believe in it, I don't find it fruitful. I take bad actions, and my reaction is, that was a bad action. I'd like to amend my behavior around that action, do a better job next time. But how I feel about it emotionally, shame, I let that go. I must let it go. I can give you an example from less than 24 hours ago. I got a bad memory. And I was talking to a guy, and I got about halfway into the conversation, and I thought to myself, do I know him? I'm talking with him as if I don't know him. But it occurs to me at this moment, I know him quite well, and I've completely forgotten about him. Shame. Then acceptance. Your brain works in a certain way. It's not working quite as crafty as it was when you were young, but it's still the brain you got. And if you feel shame over how it performs, that's not going to help you, not in any way, shape, or form. If you feel acceptance on how it performs and build strategies to make it perform better, then that's okay. The part that's not okay is not having a bad memory. The part that's not okay is feeling bad about having a bad memory. Let's say this again. The part that's okay, the part that's not okay is not failing in practice. The part that's not okay is feeling bad about failing in practice. Yeah, because if you fail in practice and you don't feel bad about it, then you can stay in practice. If you fail in practice and you do feel bad about it, you can't stay in practice because you'll be afraid to. You'll be unhappy with it.
But sometimes shame, though, is needed so that we don't go and harm other people. And I'm not saying something is innocent as just forgetting that you knew someone in whatever context that happened. But shame is necessary in life, and feeling bad and realizing you could have wronged someone.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. That sounds good. We can agree to agree.
Yeah, we agree to agree. Oh, I like that.
That's a rare thing today. Yeah. What would you say to any artist who feels like they're not making any progress in their life? I'll give you an example. Let's say a writer's been writing stories for 7+ years and they just can't get any traction.
Mm-hmm. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine on this very subject. He, my age, has just completed a 350,000 word novel. Wow. I don't think he's ever going to get it published. He doesn't think he's ever going to get it published. But we agree that the act of having written it is profoundly more important than publishing it. Now that will sound like the self-serving argument of an unpublished novelist. But the fact of the matter is, unpublished novelists outnumber published novelists thousands to one. You're much more likely to write a great novel than you are likely to have that novel achieve public acclaim. That's the math of it. And the math of it is different than it was 20 years ago. It's not getting better because there's so much content out there. It's hard to have a career, a livelihood as a writer in this day and age. But on the other hand, the fact that you can get your content out to so many people means you can find an audience. So first we have to ask ourselves, is there a difference in our definition of success between financial success and finding an audience? Some writers will say, I don't care about financial success, I just want to have an audience. Some writers will say, I don't care about financial success or an audience, I just want to achieve the goal of writing a novel. Some writers will say, I don't care if my writing is good or bad or indifferent, I just want to get paid. And all writers will find their own path in the capital P path sense of it, meaning they will find their way to the thing that makes them feel like they are fulfilling their purpose. And all writers will find their own small p path, that is to say, they'll find the strategy that works for them. When I first came to Hollywood, I taught a class on breaking into Hollywood. And one of the points I made was, everybody breaks into Hollywood a different way. It's like it's a space station with 10,000 docking ports, and you have to find the one docking port that fits your spaceship. For some people, it'll be being a writer's assistant. For others, it'll be writing fruitlessly for 10 years and then finally selling something. Everybody's got their own path. For writers who are struggling, first thing I'm going to do is change that word struggling to striving, because struggle has a negative connotation to it. I perceive myself struggling, I'm unhappy, versus I perceive myself striving, I'm happy. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to change the vocabulary around it. I'm going to assess what I'm looking at. Based on what I've done so far, can I anticipate things changing, or is this the top of the market that I found for myself? And if it's the top of this market, is it time for me to find a different market, a different way of expressing myself? Do I have the creative tools to do that? Do I have the courage to do that? Am I prepared to surrender what I think is a lot of sunk cost surrounding that? By that I mean, I've spent 7 years trying to be a young adult novelist and it didn't work out. So now I'm going to be a children's book author. I think that's going to be more successful. It looks like I've squandered 7 years of effort. No, you've invested 7 years of practice, which will help you write children's books in ways you can't imagine until you're actually writing children's books. But, again, I have to remind myself, I stand on a mountain of privilege. And the current privilege that I enjoy is I can write and teach and create and not really need to make a lot of money out of it. That's a gift, and I'm aware that it's a gift. Perhaps it's a gift that I gave myself by living a certain sort of life up to this point in it, hard work and fiscal responsibility. But nevertheless, I understand I'm in a different position. Let's imagine that you are a first responder who wants to be a novelist, okay? And your challenge is first responding pays pretty well.
Sure.
Novels so far have paid nothing at all. I've written a bunch of them, you say. I put them up on Kindle. Maybe I independently published them. They didn't sell. I'm a failed novelist. I'm a failure. Maybe I should just stop dreaming, stop expressing myself, and focus on this other thing that I'm good at. That's a choice. People make that choice. But I would say, if you are drawn to acts of self-expression, if something inside you makes you want to be a writer, just telling yourself you don't care about it anymore isn't going to make it go away. The urge will still be there. It's genetic. It's part of who you are. So rather than change things by stopping making art, change things by changing how you relate to art. Change the goal from being a successful novelist to writing better today than I wrote yesterday, and taking pleasure and pride in advancing my craft day over day. In the ideal, in the Renaissance ideal, no painter or artist would ever have to worry about money because that's what patrons are for. In the world we live in, we often find ourselves in navigating the space between what will satisfy my artistic urges and what will sustain my creative practice. That is to say, what's going to earn me a paycheck. Thoughtful people make compromises and trade-offs and find some way to meet both of those needs. The strategy that I use for all of this is to divide my time literally into 3 parts. And these 3 parts are, let's see if I can remember this, easy: mind, body, spirit. The third of my life that I devote to my mind is the stuff that I do to get better at the stuff I want to do well, my practice, let's say. Body is everything I need to do to put food on the table and shelter overhead. This is my job. This is what I do to earn income. And spirit is the stuff that I do that makes my life rise, make me feel good about myself as a person. And this will include play and love and sports and spirituality and meditation, yoga, all of that stuff. So if we say to ourselves, I got 3 things to do: devote time to mind, devote time to body, devote time to spirit. Then I can look at anything I'm doing in the course of the day and ask myself, is this a mind task, body task, or spirit task? If it's one of those 3, then it's fine. If it's none of those 3, what is it? Maybe it's a self-indulgent habit. Maybe it's a distraction. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's demands of other people. There's a lot of kind of swamp out there beyond mind, body, and spirit. So perhaps what we can take away from this class is, as an exercise, chart your actions in the course of the day. At the end of the day, write a list of all the actions you took during the day and ask yourself, which of these contributed to my mind, which created to my body, which contributed to my mind, which contributed to my body, which contributed to my spirit. You might find that you went through the day and you had no creative practice at all. You didn't write, you didn't create any art. So there was mind activity lacking. You didn't do that part of your job, of your practice. Tomorrow you try and do a better job. But you look at the things that you did during the day, and it may be you ran to the grocery store, filled a tank of gas, watched some television. So I would say filling the gas tank and going to the grocery store, that's body stuff. Taking care of business, paying the bills, earning the money to pay the bills, that's body stuff. Watching television, I'm going to file that under spirit, relaxing, recharging the batteries, seeing how other people do it. I think there's room for that. But if all I did all day was sit on the couch playing video games, then my life is not in balance. I'm only indulging, I guess, spirit at the expense of mind and body.
I was hoping we could go back to one quick point, and that is, you talked about the person with the day job, whether it's a first responder, whether it's a lawyer, teacher, barista, and how they just want to do whatever they want to do with their creativity all day. There is something that you find after having a job and then being able to be home all day and do on it, is you do lose touch with the world. And you do those little mundane things like filling up the tank. You'd be surprised something could inspire you, that if you're not out there doing that, you lose a lot of that. And so I know it doesn't sound fun to people that want to just quit the day job with the boss breathing down their neck, but there are things that feed you when you're, quote, out in the world. They don't feed you when you're at home.
Boy, you're preaching to the choir right here. Here's how I've experienced this conflict in my life in just the last few days. I am very self-sufficient. If I had nothing but my computer and my solitude, I'd be fine. But I am not convinced that's healthful. And this recent fire that we've talked about has caused me to see my community in a different light. I know a dozen people who lost their homes in the fire. They're all of the same community, the physical sport community of Ultimate Frisbee. I'm of this community too. And to see the way the community has come together around the people who've lost their houses made me realize this community is much more important to me than I imagined it was. I thought I was really, like, how did I describe it? Community adjacent. I don't want to be community adjacent. I want to be part of community in a way that I didn't 2 weeks ago. This is new information to me because I recognize if I'm really self-sufficient, I'm likely to cut myself off from the world and not notice that I've done it. So I think your point is very well taken. We all need inspiration. Inspiration from the Greek, to breathe in, to inspire. We need new information to stoke our creative flames. This is why artists take sketchbooks to art museums and draw Monets and all those other A's so they can see how the pros did it, so they can be guided by and inspired by other practitioners of the same craft. This is why I, in my youth, would videotape a situation comedy and then play it back scene by scene and reverse engineer the story outline from the script so that I could get a better understanding of the relationship between story and script. To your point, if all you do is create, then your creation has a ceiling, because at a certain point it will become, what's the word I'm looking for? It'll just cycle back on itself. You're not getting any new information. I said this before. I love talking with you guys, among other things, because you really inspire me to deep dive into how all of this stuff works. And one thing I discovered at a very early age, as I understood it, was you can experience fully or you can communicate fully, but you can't do both. So I can be an artist alone in my loft, making art, losing myself in my art. Or I can be out there in the world, always with other people, never making art. So I can be experiencing fully or communicating fully. I think I need to find a middle ground. I need to find a way to move back and forth between experiencing and communicating, between generating content and taking in new information. So, simplest solution, the most elegant solution, if you're trapped inside your artistic experience, get yourself a dog. Because your dog's going to need to be walked 3 times a day. That'll get you out of the house 3 times a day. And I know, because that's why I have a dog.